The solo ended. The amplifiers still echoed. But no one cheered. Ace Frehley lowered his guitar. In that silence, everyone understood something had changed. It was March 1978. A mid-sized venue in Cleveland. Not an arena. Not a stadium. Just a theater that held maybe 1,500 people. The kind of place where you could see faces in the crowd if you looked hard enough. Kiss was between albums. Between the spectacle everyone expected and something else nobody could name yet. The makeup was there. The costumes were there. The pyrotechnics and the blood spitting and the fire breathing, all of it was there. But something felt different that night. Ace stood stage right, his Les Paul hanging from his shoulder, the spotlight catching the silver paint on his face. He just finished a solo during Shock Me, his song, the one he sang, the one he wrote. A song that had nothing to do with Gene Simmons' demon persona or Paul Stanley's Starchild theatrics. It was just Ace. Guitar. Voice. Notes. The solo had lasted maybe 90 seconds. Clean. Precise. No theatrics. No spinning. No guitar tricks. Just playing. The kind of playing that made other guitarists stop and listen because they understood what was happening even if the audience didn't. When the final note rang out and faded into the amplifier hum, Ace expected what always came next, the roar. The screams. The validation that told him the performance had landed. Instead, there was silence. Not complete silence. You could hear restless movement. Confused murmuring. The sound of 1,500 people who had come for a show and gotten something else. Something they didn't know how to process. Ace didn't move. He stood there, guitar still in position, and waited. 5 seconds passed. An eternity in performance time. Then someone in the back, a single voice, shouted, "Where's the fire?" Laughter rippled through sections of the crowd. Not mean laughter. Just confusion manifesting as humor. They'd paid to see Kiss. The spectacle. The show. And Ace Frehley had just given them 90 seconds of pure musicianship with no flames, no blood, no theater. Ace didn't defend himself. He never did. Backstage, 20 minutes later, Ace sat alone in a corner of the dressing room. Still in makeup. Still in costume. Guitar case open beside him, his Les Paul resting inside, the stage light still reflecting off its worn finish. The rest of the band was across the room. Gene and Paul were talking to the tour manager about tomorrow's venue. Peter Criss was eating a sandwich. The usual post-show routine. Nobody mentioned the silence after Ace's solo. Nobody acknowledged what had happened. In the world of Kiss, where every night was supposed to be an explosion of energy and audience response, that kind of silence wasn't supposed to exist. Ace didn't say anything either. He just sat there, methodically wiping down his guitar strings with a cloth, the repetitive motion almost meditative. A stagehand walked by, young guy, maybe 22, carrying equipment cases. He paused near Ace, hesitated, then spoke quietly. "That solo was incredible." Ace looked up. Said nothing. Just met the kid's eyes. "I mean it," the stagehand continued. "I've worked maybe 30 rock shows this year. Nobody plays like that. Nobody. They didn't get it out there tonight, but I got it." Ace nodded once. Small. Brief. Returned to cleaning his guitar. The stagehand lingered for a moment, then moved on. This was how it worked for Ace Frehley. The audience wanted the Spaceman. The character. The persona with the smoking guitar and the rocket-launching Les Paul. They wanted entertainment. But Ace was a guitar player. Had been since he was 13 years old, teaching himself in his bedroom in the Bronx, listening to records until his fingers could replicate what his ears heard. The persona was work. The guitar was home. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what happened 6 months earlier. September 1977. A recording studio in New York. Kiss was supposed to be working on their next album, but things had gotten complicated. 4 members. 4 egos. 4 different visions of what the band should sound like. Gene wanted more demons and darkness. Paul wanted more commercial appeal. Peter wanted more recognition. Ace wanted, well, Ace didn't want much of anything except to play guitar the way he heard it in his head. The producer that day was a session veteran named Eddie Kramer. Legendary in the industry. Had worked with Hendrix, with Zeppelin, with everyone who mattered. He'd been brought in to help navigate the tensions, to find some kind of cohesion. During a break, while the others were on the phone with management, Eddie had pulled Ace aside in the control room. "Can I be honest with you?" Ace had shrugged. "Sure. You're the best musician in this band. By a wide margin. And you're letting them bury you under all that theater." Ace had looked at him. No reaction. Just listening. "I'm not saying leave the makeup. I'm not saying quit. I'm saying—" Eddie paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'm saying that guitar solo you just played in there? That's worth more than 10 smoke bombs. But you're afraid to claim it." "I'm not afraid of anything," Ace had said quietly. "Then why do you hide behind the character? Why do you let Paul and Gene do all the talking? You wrote Shock Me. You sing it. You play it. But when it comes time to defend it, you disappear." Ace had turned away, looking at the mixing board, at all those faders and knobs that turned sound into something people could carry home with them. "I don't need to defend it," Ace had said finally. "If it's good, it speaks for itself." Eddie had smiled. Sad. Understanding. "Kid, that's beautiful. It's also bullshit. Sometimes great things die in silence because the people who made them won't fight for them." That conversation had stayed with Ace through the rest of the recording sessions, through the album release, through the tour that followed. It sat in the back of his mind like an unanswered question. Subscribe and leave a comment, because some moments only make sense when we remember them together. Now it was March 1978, backstage in Cleveland, and that question was still there. The tour moved on. Columbus. Detroit. Chicago. Every night, the same routine. The spectacle. The show. Ace's solo during Shock Me became a moment of strange tension. The crowd never quite knew how to respond to it. It was too musical. Too real. It didn't fit the cartoon they'd come to see. But something else started happening. After shows, there would be people waiting. Not many. 5 or 6. Sometimes just 2. They'd wait by the stage door or near the equipment trucks. When Ace would come out, usually alone, usually quiet, they'd approach him. "That solo tonight. The way you played that bend in the third phrase. I've never heard anyone phrase like that." These weren't casual fans. These were guitar players. Kids who'd saved up for months to buy their first Les Paul. Session musicians who played clubs 6 nights a week. Music teachers who recognized technique when they heard it. Ace would nod. Sometimes shake their hand. Occasionally sign something. But he never said much. Just acknowledged them and moved on. In Indianapolis, a kid, maybe 17, wearing a denim jacket covered in band patches, had stopped Ace outside the venue. "Can I ask you something?" Ace had paused. "Yeah. Why don't you do more solos? Like longer ones. The band could build a whole section around your playing. You're better than most of the guitarists headlining their own tours." Ace had looked at the kid for a long moment. "It's not about being better. It's about serving the song. But what if the song deserves more of you?" That question had hit differently. Not because it was profound. Because it was honest. Ace had smiled slightly, a rare thing. "Then I guess the song should speak up." 3 weeks later, in Philadelphia, something shifted. It was the same show. Same set list. Same spectacle. But when Ace's solo came during Shock Me, something felt different in the room. The audience was listening. Really listening. When the solo ended, 90 seconds, no theatrics, just guitar, the silence came again. But this time, Ace didn't wait for applause. He stepped forward to the microphone, still holding his guitar, and spoke directly to the crowd. His voice was quiet, conversational, not performative. "You know what this guitar is?" he said, gesturing to his Les Paul. "It's not a prop. It's not part of the costume. This is what I do. This is who I am. If you came for fire and explosions, we've got plenty of that. But this..." He played a single note, letting it sustain and fade. "This is the only thing I know how to give you that's real." The arena was silent. Different silence. Attentive silence. "So when I play," Ace continued, "I'm not asking you to cheer. I'm asking you to listen." He stepped back from the mic, nodded to Gene and Paul. The next song started. Away from the spotlight, Ace made a choice no one expected. After that Philadelphia show, Ace told Paul and Gene he wanted to change his solo. Make it longer. Build more space around it. Let the song breathe instead of rushing to the next explosion. Gene had resisted. People don't come to Kiss for guitar solos. They come for the show. Then they'll get both, Ace had said simply. Paul had been more diplomatic. Ace, we trust you. But if the audience doesn't respond, we need to pull back. This is still a business. Fair enough, Ace had agreed. The next night in Boston, Ace took his solo to 3 minutes. He added phrases he'd been hearing in his head for months but never played on stage. He let notes breathe. He built dynamics. He did what great guitar players do when they stop worrying about the audience and start listening to the music. When the solo ended, there was that familiar silence. Then someone in the front row started clapping. Slow. Deliberate. One person. Then another person joined. Then another. Within 10 seconds, the entire arena was applauding. Not screaming. Not losing their minds. Just clapping. The way you clap when you've witnessed something that demands respect rather than hysteria. Ace stood there, guitar still in hand, and for the first time in years of wearing makeup and costumes and playing the character, he felt seen. Not as the Spaceman. As Ace Frehley. Guitar player from the Bronx who'd spent his entire life trying to make 6 strings say things words couldn't. What followed silenced everyone in the room. The tour continued. Word started spreading, not through marketing, not through radio, but through musicians. Session players would tell other session players. Guitar students would tell their teachers. The message was simple: if you want to see someone actually play, watch Ace Frehley. Album sales didn't change. Kiss was still Kiss, spectacle and theater and makeup. But something else was building underneath. A recognition that within all that performance was a player who didn't need any of it. In June 1978, Guitar Player magazine ran a feature. Not on Kiss. On Ace Frehley specifically. They interviewed him for 3 hours, asked him about technique and influences and approach. The journalist, a session guitarist himself, wrote, Frehley doesn't play like he's trying to prove something. He plays like the guitar is his first language and English is a distant second. When you listen carefully, you realize the spectacle isn't hiding the musician. The musician is tolerating the spectacle. Gene and Paul had been furious about the article. It positioned Ace as separate from the band. Above it, somehow. Ace hadn't cared. He'd been interviewed and he'd answered honestly. That was all. But the article did something unexpected. It reached players who never considered Kiss as anything more than entertainment. Suddenly, guitar shops had kids coming and asking about Ace's setup. His tone. His phrasing. The conversation changed. Years later. After Ace had left Kiss, after the makeup came off, after everything changed, a journalist asked him about that night in Cleveland. The silence after the solo. The moment no one cheered. Did it hurt? The journalist asked. Ace had thought about it for a moment. Then shook his head. No. It clarified. They wanted a show. I gave them music. Those are different things. The ones who got it stayed. The ones who didn't Well, they got what they came for anyway. Do you wish you'd spoken up more? Defended your playing? Ace had smiled. That small, knowing smile. The guitar spoke for me. It always has. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. That Les Paul, the one he played in Cleveland, the one that hung silent while 1,500 people didn't know how to respond, sits in a museum now. Next to it, a small plaque with a quote from a session musician who was in the audience that night. He didn't need our applause. But we needed his guitar. Ace Frehley never fought for recognition. He just played. And eventually, the right people heard.